The pain didn't arrive like in the commercials. No polite hand over the heart, no soft sigh into a chair. It came as a cold fist under the breastbone, a metal grip that tightened with every breath until the world narrowed to a bright ring of light around my stove's ticking clock. I was rinsing a chipped teacup I'd had since 1979, the glaze spiderwebbed like old ice, when the water turned too loud and the kitchen floor took a slow step toward me. "Grandma." Tyler's voice floated from the living room, wrapped in the tinny wash of game noises, and that relentless auto-tuned music he likes. The teacup slipped, kissed the tile, and didn't break, stubborn like me. My fingers went numb halfway to the dish rack. I pressed my palm to my sternum and felt a stranger's heartbeat in my chest. I took a breath that wasn't a breath and turned toward the doorway. Tyler was already there, sneakers squeaking on the linoleum, the square of his phone raised like a badge between us. He didn't take my hand. He didn't say what's wrong. He swiped up and the camera found me. I saw myself in the tiny reflection of his screen, mouth slack, eyes wider than they'd been since the day his mother left him at my door with a note about a break and a bag of laundry. "Guys, look," he whispered as if we were in church. "She's doing it again." Again, like it was a segment. Again, like I'd been rehearsing this collapse behind his room's closed door. The phone's ring light cast a halo on the cabinet, turning my kitchen into a stage I never auditioned for. Little hearts and laughing faces burned up the side of his screen like confetti. I could read them without my glasses. Old. Dramatic. LMAO. Do the ambulance prank. Pin this. My knees found the floor because the floor was the only thing that still believed in gravity. The cool tile pressed against my cheek, and I thought of the summer Tyler was 8, and we laid on the patio naming shapes in the clouds. He cried when one looked like a dog that wasn't our dog anymore. I promised him some aches pass if you name them. I tried to name this one. Not panic. Not bad gas. Not one of those spells, as Dr. Fields calls them when he thinks I need gentling. The word I didn't want was the word that fit. Heart. "Ty," I said, my voice small as an old penny. "Call 911. He knelt beside me, but not to touch, he was framing. "Chat," she said, "call 911. His laugh was a little broken, like he hadn't decided if this was hilarious or horrifying. Should we? Or nah, hold up, we're peeking. Peeking. I had heard him say that about sunsets when he ran to the porch to film the sky. Not people. Not me. The pain pushed backward into my shoulder blade and climbed my jaw like it had nails. I swallowed, and the swallow was a stone. "Tyler." I tried again, but my grandson had slipped into that new language that lives in the gap between his face and the world. The camera watched me the way a cat watches a bird that has forgotten how to fly. The laptop on the table was open to the group he calls the team. Names that sound like cereal brands and car parts. Messages popped one after another, a parade of urgency in neon bubbles. "Keep it rolling." "Panic sells." "Angle from the floor." "It's realer." "Do not call yet." "Wait for the ambulance siren." "Retention spike." "Pin the comment Grandma knew." And "ask for 5K likes to call." A username at the top was one I knew better than my own. My daughter's account. The one she made to sell candles with slogans about peace and prosperity. There was a crown next to her name, a tiny emoji I didn't understand. She had written, "Just a bit longer, Ty. Add the filter that makes eyes bigger, more sympathy. Tell them her pills are on the counter." I stared at that line until the letters blurred and turned to rain. The pill bottles were on the counter. A neat row of them I refill every Friday like a taut little parade. Blood pressure, cholesterol, baby aspirin, Dr. Field says for the heart, just in case. Tyler's hand hovered over them like a magician about to reveal a dove. "Guys, look, the meds," he narrated to the void that was apparently a crowd. "She's on all this stuff." "Chat, should I? Nah, I can't touch it." Teeth. Terms of service. Terms of suffering. The microwave above me ticked down the ghost of a timer I hadn't set. The kitchen smelled like hot metal and lemon dish soap. Outside, someone's sprinklers started their click-click hiss like a snake winding through dry grass. Inside, my chest was a fist that wanted to find a door and couldn't. I thought of the day Tyler was born, how my daughter's hands shook when she signed the hospital form, and how I promised God I would make sure this boy knew how to be held. I taught him to tie shoes with a loop and a promise. I taught him to say thank you, to wave at the mailman, to open doors. But there are doors I never learned existed. Doors that glow from the inside and pay an attention instead of cash. Doors that open into rooms where pain has a price tag and love is something you do for the comments. Please. I said to Tyler or God, whoever was closer. The phone trembled. For a second, his fingers dipped toward the screen to end it. Then the view count number flipped like a slot machine landing on cherries. He smiled small, guilty 16. Almost there, Grandma, he whispered, as if I were holding my breath underwater and could wait 2 more seconds. It's going crazy. Something inside me went very still, the way a house goes quiet right before the storm hits. I saw, with perfect clarity, the fork the world was laid on. On one side was the boy I raised on peanut butter sandwiches and backyard sprinklers, who would call and wait with me and say my name like a prayer. On the other was a mirror held up to the dark, asking, "How much would you trade for applause?" Maybe he didn't understand the math. Maybe he thought ambulances appear for characters in videos the way they do in movies. On cue, beautiful and inevitable. Maybe he trusted the crowd to tell him what a conscience would have, if the crowd were human. The crowd said, "Wait." I held Tyler's gaze for 1 full second, more, long enough to travel the bridge between the child he was and the boy he'd become. Long enough to let him see me, not as a trending topic, but as the woman who wiped his forehead when he had the flu, who sat through every silent school play and every parent meeting his mother missed, who kept the light on when he stayed out too late because lights mean someone believes you'll come home. "Ty," I said for the last time as the room grew bright at the edges. "Call." He hesitated, and in that hesitation lived every story I would ever tell about this day. Then, somewhere outside, a neighbor's dog barked, and the bark must have sounded like a siren in his head, because he flinched as if a cue had been given. His thumb hovered over the screen, the crowd still chanting. A single comment floated to the top, pinned by no one but louder than all the rest. "She's your grandmother." His mouth fell open. The phone dipped. The ring light caught my wedding band and turned it into a star on the tile. "Okay," he said, to me or to himself. "Okay." The world didn't rush back. It drifted, the way dust does in sunlight, slow and inexorable. He fumbled with the keypad, fingers ridiculous and new, and as he finally pressed the numbers that matter, a quieter pain slid in beside the fist in my chest. It didn't grip. It settled. It was the knowledge that when I got up, if I got up, nothing in this house would be the same size again. The cups, the tile, the space between my grandson and his phone, the distance between a life and a live stream, the shape of the word family. The paramedic's voice sounded like it was coming from inside a seashell, loud and far away at the same time. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" Squeeze my fingers. A plastic clip kissed my finger. A cuff hugged my arm. Sticky tabs found my chest like cold coins pressed to a wishing well. Someone raised my head. The room tilted and clicked back into place. "BP is 184/102, another voice said. "Irregular rhythm. Get a 12 lead." Tyler hovered beyond the blue uniforms, his phone finally face down on the counter like a scolded dog. He tried to wipe the stream, but nothing disappears from a room once people have breathed it in. A neighbor's text buzzed my landline before they even lifted me onto the gurney. "Are you okay? We just saw." "I need you to take slow breaths," the paramedic said, keeping her voice steady enough to lend me a little of it. She had a small scar near her eyebrow, and the kind of eyes that register clutter and crisis as the same solvable shape. "Name?" "Evelyn," I said, and heard how thin my name sounded in my own mouth. "Evelyn Carter." "Pain from 1 to 10? She asked. 7. I lied because 10 felt like a confession. As they rolled me toward the door, the world narrowed to rectangles. The rectangle of the ceiling lamp, the rectangle of the door frame, the rectangle of sky cut by the porch roof. Tyler's face slid into one of them, pale and blurred. A boy at the bottom of a pool reaching for light. "I'm coming," he said, tripping over his own shoes. "Grandma, I'm coming." A neighbor stood on her lawn in a robe, a hand over her mouth, eyes wide with a sympathy that came from another century. Pre-broadcast, pre-emoji, pre-everything. The siren started as a thought and became a ribbon pulling us through town. The city I've lived in for 51 years passed like slides in an old carousel. Mr. Patel's Market, the school where I taught second grade, the oak that lost a limb in '93. My heart beat in my throat, slow and stubborn, like it was hauling a heavy cart up a hill it hadn't agreed to climb. In the ambulance, they asked me about allergies, medication, history. "Baby aspirin," I said, which made the medic nod with the solemn approval people give when you remember to bring a sweater. "High blood pressure." "My husband." I stopped. There wasn't time for old stories about men who fixed radios with 2 paper clips and a prayer. At St. Gabriel's ER, light turned clinical. The kind of light that reveals lint on dark fabrics and everything people mean when they say sterile. A nurse named Dana moved like a well-practiced verb. We're going to do a troponin, an EKG, and chest x-ray, she said. You're not alone, okay? We've got you. Tyler appeared at my side with his hair plastered to his forehead. He'd run, or he'd cried, or both. The phone lurked in his pocket like a second pulse. I'm sorry, he said, the words stacked on one another unsteady. I'm so sorry. I wanted to say it's okay. That universal ointment mothers spread on every scrape. But the truth is sticky, it clings under the bandage. Sit, I said instead. Breathe. He obeyed, knees bouncing like a metronome set 2 beats too fast. I called right away, he said, and his eyes flicked to the corner of the ceiling where a camera blinked red, recording nothing and everything. I did call. A doctor with fatigue in his shoulders and kindness in his mouth studied my EKG. Mrs. Carter, you're experiencing what we call a non-ST elevation myocardial infarction, he said. A heart attack, but not the kind with the dramatic billboard waves. We'll admit you for observation, start anticoagulation, get repeat enzymes and imaging. I teach 2nd grade, I said, reflex, as if the fact of who I've been could argue with what my heart had decided to do today. He smiled like that detail was a lucky charm pinned to a lapel. They moved me to a room that had a view of a gray wall and a sliver of sky doing its best to look cheerful. Tyler sat by the bed, hands clasped, sandwiched between prayer and Wi-Fi. The phone buzzed and he flinched like it had bitten him. Turn it off, I said. He did slowly, like he was laying a baby in a crib. Silence unpacked itself. Not the comfortable silence of shared soup and a game show, but the kind that hums with words that have not been said yet. In that hum, shame arrived, his first, then mine, then a third thing I didn't recognize yet, larger and heavier, with a shape that only became clear once it touched the bedside table. Consequence. Why? I asked finally. Not sharp. Not even loud. Just wide enough to let him pour something honest into it. He stared at his knuckles. It's how it works, he said, a sentence that explained everything and nothing. You go live. People come. They stay if it's real. If it's intense. You thought I was content? The word tasted like cardboard. He shook his head hard. No, Grandma. I panicked. And then the numbers, he swallowed. They were, I've never seen. He stopped again. Because there's no elegant way to confess you mistook your grandmother's mortality for momentum. On the TV, a muted commercial showed a family on a beach, the ocean arranging itself into gentle metaphors behind them. A woman laughed with her head thrown back in a way no one laughs when they aren't acting. I closed my eyes and tried to find a softer place in my chest to place this moment. Who told you to keep filming? I asked because questions are a kind of map. He hesitated a beat too long. The chat, he said. And your mother, I said, not a question. His flinch was the answer. I saw her name. He looked up, frightened in a way pain hadn't made him. She said people would donate if they thought if it was urgent. For bills. She said it's not wrong if it helps us. A rubber band stretched to include whatever anyone needs at the moment they say it. My daughter could tie any decision to that pronoun and call it love. A nurse came in adjusting my drip. How's the pain? Quieter, I said. But smarter. She nodded like that made sense. Maybe it did in rooms like this, where bodies confess privately to strangers and strangers promise to keep those confessions safe in charts and codes. When we were alone again, Tyler said, I don't know how to be without it. The phone. It's where my friends are. It's where I am. I know, I said, and surprised both of us by meaning it. When I was your age, I had a landline in the kitchen with a cord long enough to lasso a cow. I wrapped it around my arm while I talked to Tina for 3 hours about boys who would forget our birthdays. My mother threatened to cut the cord. I thought I would die of silence. He smiled small and real. Did you? No. But I did get a blister from the phone resting in the same place on my shoulder. I lifted my hand. See? Faint scar. Proof of devotion to the wrong altar. He glanced at his pocket, at the shape of worship glowing through denim. I messed up, he said. It landed like a penny in a jar, the first of many small but heavier than it looks. Yes, I said. And you called. Both truths can sit in the same room if you give them separate chairs. The door opened and the social worker walked in with a clipboard and a face like a warm blanket. I'm Mara, she said. I'm here to check on resources, family support, that sort of thing. Her eyes flicked to Tyler with a kindness that didn't erase its appraisal. Big day, huh? He nodded. Do you have someone else we can call? A daughter? Son? She asked, turning slightly toward me. My daughter, I said. The word felt like stepping onto a porch with a rotten board. We're complicated. Mara nodded, professional empathy bolted to her training. Most families are. Saturday. I'm also here because hospital security flags some online content. They wanted to make sure you're safe at home, Mrs. Carter. Any concerns there? Could lie. Plenty of families tuck their mess into the linen closet when company comes. But this wasn't company. This was triage for a kind of wound that doesn't scan on an X-ray. We need help, I said, the way a person might admit they can't carry a piano down the stairs alone. With boundaries. With lines you don't cross just because there's an audience. Mara's pen moved. We can connect you with a family counselor who specializes in social media harm and adolescent behavior, she said. Also, there's a program for digital literacy, ethics, consent, bystander intervention. It's not punishment. It's scaffolding. Tyler shifted in his chair. Do I have to? He asked, small again. You get to, Mara said, and her tone made it sound like a door opening, not closing. The cardiology resident poked his head in. Quick update, he said. Your troponin is elevated but trending down, Mrs. Carter. We'll keep you overnight. Echo in the morning. The room exhaled with me. Overnight. Morning. Time had not stopped. It had merely changed its gait. After they left, Tyler said, what if I log off? Like really off? Delete. All of it. The idea was so radical it felt like a haircut you regret before the first snip. You don't have to amputate to heal, I said. But you might need to stop the bleeding. He looked at his hands again, as if an answer might be written in the pale lines there. I can take them down, he whispered. The videos. The account. And call your mother, I added. Tell her the new rules. Not the internet's rules. Ours. He nodded, eyes wet. For a brief second, I saw the 8-year-old again, the boy who let his popsicle drip all over my porch because he was too busy showing me a beetle with wings like stained glass. Grandma, he said. Yes. When you said call. I heard you. His voice cracked. I didn't move. I don't know why. I reached for his hand, and this time he took mine. Because you're 16 in a world designed to confuse 70-year-olds and 16-year-olds in equal measure, I said. Because 1,000 strangers told you to be a director when what you needed to be was a grandson. Because it's loud out there. He squeezed my fingers like the paramedic had asked me to squeeze hers. I'm listening now, he said. Good, I replied, and leaned my head back against the pillow. The monitor kept time with a softer drummer. Somewhere down the hall, a baby cried, the fierce complaint of someone brand new. Someone walked past laughing in that round, exhausted way people laugh in hospitals when they've decided to keep choosing the living. My chest ached, but it was the kind of ache that means the muscle remembers what it's for. Tyler stood. I'm going to talk to Mara, he said. About the scaffolding. Go, I said, and watched him walk out into a corridor that led, if he let it, to fewer rooms filled with applause and more rooms filled with people who know his name when the camera isn't on. I closed my eyes. The teacup was probably still in the sink, stubbornly unbroken. In the morning, I would go home and wash it again, and maybe this time, it would chip in a way that made a new pattern I could learn to love. The morning made a fragile promise, sunlight on the curtain, the soft clatter of breakfast trays out in the corridor, the beep-beep past my door that meant other hearts were keeping imperfect time too. The cardiology fellow, bright-eyed and too young to remember landlines, said the words stable and discharge like small wrapped gifts. Med changes follow up in 1 week, cardiac rehab referral, he added. I nodded, trying them on in my head the way you try on coats you didn't plan to buy. Tyler arrived in a sweatshirt 2 sizes too large, carrying a plastic bag that said thank you in red block letters. Inside, my robe, my slippers, the lipstick I wear on holidays. He had that morning after look, remorse pressed into every fold, sleepwalking a step behind him. I talked to Mara, he said before hello. I signed up for the program. The scaffolding. He tried the word again, and found he liked the feel of it. And I took the videos down. Good, I said. One syllable that didn't forgive or condemn, just set a cup on the table, so something could be poured. He shifted, then added, I called Mom. The second cup. How did that go? I asked, already bracing for a storm that would arrive through a speakerphone. She's mad, he said, but his mouth tugged in a way that meant proud was in the mix too, even if she'd never say it. She said I torched a bag. I told her the bag was me. A laugh broke loose in my chest, the first one since the siren. That sounds like a sentence people write on bathroom mirrors when they change their lives. Yeah, he said, and his eyes glinted with a relief he didn't trust yet. She'll come by later. She said we need to align. Align, my daughter's favorite verb, the way she makes it sound like science. We'll align at a table, I said. No cameras. The discharge nurse handed me a packet thick enough to stop a door. New prescriptions, she said, tapping the highlighted sections. Call if you have chest pain, shortness of breath, or if your intuition says something's off. We trust that. We trust that. I folded the phrase like a handkerchief and put it in my pocket. At home, the kitchen had not moved while I was gone. The teacup still waited in the sink, stubbornly unbroken. A survivor by accident and design. The ring light sat on the counter like a pale moon at noon, embarrassed to be caught out of season. Tyler unplugged it and slid it into the hall closet behind the winter coats. A quiet burial. We made tea the slow way. Steam curled the air into question marks. Tyler turned the radio to the oldies station, where a woman with a voice like Wormwood promised we were listening to the soundtrack of our best years. In the quiet between songs, my landline phone rang. The sound traveled through the house like a familiar dog trotting back from a long adventure. Evelyn. It was Mrs. Patel from the market, her voice braided with concern. We saw, well, everyone saw. Are you home? I am, I said. Mending. She clucked her tongue in that grandmother dialect that transcends language. I will send soup. No cameras, she added, and we both smiled, even though she could not see mine. After lunch, the doorbell announced my daughter like a trumpet announces a queen. She came in with sunglasses on her head and a tote bag stuffed with reusable righteousness. Seeing her is always like opening a closet and having every season fall out. Spring sweetness, summer heat, autumn distance, winter inventory. Mom, she said and kissed the air beside my cheek. How are we feeling? The plural tried to put us on the same team. Grateful, I said, and tired. She glanced at Tyler. We need to talk about outcomes, she said to him like he was a junior associate. Your metrics. Stop, I said, not loud, but the kind of stop that turns off faucets. We're going to say the names of the things we did and what they cost. Then we're going to choose a different way. Her mouth pressed into a straight line. You've got a lot of nerve, she began, then seemed to hear the pun in a heart house and rolled her eyes at herself. Fine. Say your names. I almost died, I said, simple as setting a plate down. You encouraged your son to keep filming that almost. Context, she said quickly. We're under pressure. Rent bills, your medications. My life, I said, and the words made a sound like a gate closing. Her shoulders dropped a fraction. I wanted it to be worth something, she said, and there it was, the raw wire of it stripped of insulation. We do so much for nothing. I thought, if it helps. If it helps, I echoed. It doesn't help to turn a house into a theater. It doesn't help to let a crowd choose our next sentence. Tyler stood between us, not a wall this time but a bridge. I told her I'm done, he said. With lives about us. About our pain. I can post skate clips, dumb jokes, I don't know. But not this. My daughter huffed a fragile laugh. Dumb jokes don't pay, she said, then caught herself. Maybe they pay in sleep. Sleep is a currency, I said. So is respect. So is the ability to stand in a kitchen and have a heart attack in private without a pole. She sat. The sound of her sitting was an apology even before her mouth attempted one. I'm sorry, she said, and it was more like she was telling herself than me. I forget the line. The internet eats lines for breakfast. We're going to draw ours with a permanent marker, I said. Here are the rules. Medical emergencies are not content. Family arguments are not content. Tears are not content. If it would humiliate the person you love on the day they're the most fragile, it doesn't go online. She nodded, not all the way down to her bones yet, but enough to start. Okay, she said. Okay. We ate Mrs. Patel's soup at the table like the table was church. After, Tyler took out a notebook and wrote boundaries, at the top like it was a homework assignment that counted toward graduation. He wrote, ask before you record. Stop when someone says stop. Ask why. Who benefits? What does it cost? He slid the notebook to me. Add 1, he said. I took the pen and wrote, if you wouldn't show it to your future self, don't show it to strangers. He grinned, and for a second, I saw the future self reading that line and nodding. In the late afternoon, the house quieted to that particular hum of refrigerators and passing cars, and the low conversation of pipes and old walls. My chest ached in a way that felt like knitting tug, loop, new connection. I dozed with a blanket over my knees and woke to Tyler sitting cross-legged on the floor. Laptop open, deleting folders I didn't know he had. When he closed it, he looked lighter, as if the machine had been storing some of his gravity. There's one more thing, he said. The stream, it got mirrored. People reposted it. He searched my face. I can't stop all of it. The truth sat down at the table with us. Then we drown it out with better things, I said. Not saccharine, just human. We make a noise that isn't cruel and see who hears it. He nodded, then reached for the landline, the cord coiling like a tame snake. I'm calling Tina, he said. My Tina. I laughed. She still answers on the second ring. She did. And when she heard my voice, she cried the old way, off camera on purpose. We made plans for her to come by with a deck of cards and the gossip from 30 years ago that still blooms if you water it. Evening stretched its long arms across the kitchen. I washed the stubborn cup, drying it with the towel that's more whole than cloth now. When I set it in the cabinet, it caught the last light and looked almost new where the glaze had thinned. Tyler stood beside me, close enough that I could feel the heat of him, the simple mammal comfort of family. Grandma, he said. Yes. When it happened, you asked me to call. I will hear that forever. Good, I said gently. Forever is about the right size for a lesson like that. We turned off the lights. The house settled. My heart kept its imperfect time. A drummer a little off the beat and completely committed to the song. The internet didn't forget, but it did drift like weather loud then gone, leaving branches bent and a few shingles in the yard. What stayed were footprints, screen records, stitched clips with strangers' verdicts, and a trending audio sampling my whisper, call 911, like a hook. Tyler didn't show me. Mara did, gently, so we could plan without pretending we lived in a quieter century. You can't put toothpaste back, she said in our first family session, but you can stop brushing with poison. She drew a map of circles labeled home, school, online, extended family. In each we wrote what safety means. Home, no filming without consent. Phones parked at meals. Crisis equals call, not capture. School, counselor check-ins. Media literacy elective. Online private accounts post delay. Ask why twice. Extended family. No monetizing emergencies. No sharing without permission. When in doubt, don't. My daughter bristled at rules until Mara swapped the word for rituals. Rituals make us feel safe and chosen, she said. They're rules wearing sweaters. We chose Sunday dinners. No devices in the dining room. One story told start to finish without interruption. The first was about Mrs. Patel's cat who returned after 11 days smelling like someone else's perfume. We guessed at his secret life for an hour. It felt like stretching a muscle we'd forgotten. Cardiac rehab started Tuesdays and Thursdays in a room that smelled faintly of lemon and determination. I walked a treadmill under watchful monitors with others renegotiating terms with their bodies. We compared scars, soup recipes, and the peculiar way fear sits in the throat like a phone on vibrate. A nurse named Keisha taught breathing like we meant it. In 4, hold 4, out 6, she tapped. Make space for the good stuff. In week 2, a tech approached my treadmill. Mrs. Carter? My grandmother followed your situation, she corrected kindly. She asked me to say she's praying for your heart and your grandson's spine. We'll take both. I laughed, my monitor blipping like a delighted bird. At home, Tyler kept his word. He filmed sunsets and the squirrel that learned our trash bin like a raccoon with a degree. He posted skateboard wheels whispering across the old court and captioned, practicing. No tricks. Learning the ground. Comments were human, not hive nice. Same. This calms me. Proud of you, kid. He pinned. Thanks for choosing better. He went to the digital ethics class with 12 teens who looked sentenced to poetry. Day 2, he brought home a worksheet titled Consent Isn't a Checkbox. He rolled his eyes, then filled every line. My daughter treated our rituals like a foreign city. Beautiful, confusing, full of streets she couldn't pronounce. She slipped twice. Once filming soup steam because it looked cinematic, once starting. My audience loved when She caught herself both times, apologized without staging the apology, and let her hands learn to rest. Wednesday's mail brought a bill with numbers that made my eyes water, and a smaller sheet titled Charity Care. I set it down like an unexpected guest. "We'll figure it out," my daughter said before my speech on payment plans and pride. I picked up extra shifts. "And your other daughter, my sister, sent money." Note said, "No strings, I promise. Your sister." A bridge where a chasm had been. Good. Pastor Lee visited with pound cake and an apology that wasn't his to give. "We didn't prepare people for this world," he said, smoothing a napkin. "We taught don't steal, don't lie, don't covet oxen. We didn't teach don't turn your grandmother into a broadcast." "Start now," I said. "We are," he answered. "A new class, witnessing with honor." Tyler flushed. "Is it weird I want to go?" "It's perfect," the pastor said. The school counselor called. "A student played your clip in class." Tyler walked out instead of punching him. Given high school, that's growth. "We're addressing it." When I asked, Tyler shrugged. He wanted a rise. I didn't give him me. "Who did you give him?" "The door," he said, and something unclenched in my chest. That night, the power blew in a storm that made trees argue with the sky. We lit candles and told stories the old way. Faces lit from below like camp. I told Tyler the blackout of '77 and dancing in the street to a transistor radio. He told me about a boy who makes tiny films and screens them in his garage for friends only. "We could go," he said. "If you're up for it." "I'm up for small movies in garages," I said. "For rooms where they clap for the person, not the algorithm." When the lights returned, the house hummed triumphant, and the stove clock blinked 12 o'clock like it was time to begin again. I reset it. Midnight can be whenever we decide. Mara's last session came with a certificate that wasn't about paper. "Graduation," she smiled. "Scaffolding can come down when the structure remembers itself." "What if it forgets?" Tyler asked. "Then we build new scaffolding," she said. "Structures don't fail by asking for help. They fail by pretending not to need it." We stood in the doorway, rain rinsing the street. Across the way, Mrs. Patel's cat sat in the window like a monarch. My heart kept its irregular music, steady in its own way, a drummer who knew the room. "Grandma," Tyler said, head on my shoulder. "When you get scared again, tell me before it gets that loud?" "I can," I said. "When you get tempted, tell me before it gets that bright?" He nodded. "Deal." We shook, ceremonial and silly, then hugged, because ritual without touch is choreography. The storm spent itself. Somewhere a car radio played an old song, Stranger's Mouth at Lights. We sang, off-key and on purpose, not for an audience, but for us. Forgiveness didn't arrive with trumpets. It came like physical therapy, small, precise motions repeated until the joint remembered how to be part of the body. Some days it stuck, some days it clicked and refused. On a Thursday, Tyler knocked on my door with a shoebox the color of rain. "Project," he said, setting it on the table like a peace offering. Inside were printed photos from old phones and a thrifted camcorder with a date stamp that still thought it was 2009. "I want to document us," he said carefully. "But the quiet way. Private. For the shelf. Not the feed." He swallowed. "Will you help me make an archive?" The word slid into the room and took off its shoes. An archive wasn't a show. It was a pantry for memory. "Rules?" I asked, because rules wearing sweaters had saved us. He nodded, pulled a folded page from his pocket, and read. "Consent first. No emergencias. No tears unless the person wants them remembered. Titles that tell the truth. We decide the audience in ink." "In ink," I repeated, pleased by the solidity of it. "Okay." We started with things that never learned to brag. The recipe card in my mother's slanted hand for peach cobbler. The dent in the banister at Tyler's height when he was 6. The shoelaces tied with loops that look like rabbit ears mid-leap. Tyler filmed my hands while I told the story of the teacup I didn't break. I filmed his hands while he took apart the ring light to salvage the stand for a desk lamp. Transformation as ethics. On Saturday, we went to the garage screening. A white sheet fluttered from a clothesline. Lawn chairs made an audience of knees and shins. The first film was 60 seconds of a boy's grandfather buttering toast like a ritual. The knife scraping soft music. The second was a mother laughing quietly at something off camera. The camera deciding we didn't need to know what it was to believe it. When credits rolled, names handwritten. People clapped like they'd been given something real and rare. Permission to be small. On the way home, Tyler said, I think I mistook attention for love. The streetlights threw gold nets across the road. People gave me so much of it that I thought more meant safer. More is a direction, not a destination, I said. Love is a place you can sit down. At rehab, Keisha high-fived my better numbers and handed me a worksheet called Triggers and Anchors. Triggers are what flood you. Anchors are what hold you, she said. I wrote. Trigger. Phone held up like a shield. Anchor. Landline ring. Trigger. Sirens and videos. Anchor. The neighbor's actual dog bark. Trigger. My whisper sampled. Anchor. My own voice reading a grocery list. I taped the list inside the pantry door. Pastor Lee's class, Witnessing with Honor, surprised me. Teenagers came with hoods up and eyes down, then raised both when he asked, What's the difference between evidence and exploitation? Tyler's hand went up. Consent, he said. And purpose. A girl added. And whether the person would want to watch it later. Pastor nodded. Then build your rules from that. One evening, the doorbell brought a boy I didn't know, hair in his eyes, apology on his face. I reposted the stream, he said to the porch. For clout. I took it down. I'm sorry. Tyler didn't make a speech. He asked, Do you want to help us digitize old tapes? The boy blinked, surprised by the invitation to join a better story, and said yes. We made a schedule. Monday, homework at the table, phones in the basket. Tuesday, rehab, then library. Wednesday, archive hour, choose one object, write its story. Thursday, screens off after 9, cards or dominoes or nothing at all. Friday, Tyler's Garage Films night. Sunday, dinner, one story all the way through. Life won't keep every appointment, but it attends more when it's invited with care. My daughter kept showing up. She brought actual paper checks for the hospital bill, and a face that had learned to sit still. I'm taking a break from the audience, she said, putting the phrase in quotes like something she was packing away. My sister texted me every morning for a week. She said, Try boring. Boring is underrated. She smiled, and it looked like a new piece of furniture in an old room. I woke up today and made oatmeal without thinking of angles. Boring kept the species going, I said. Boring paid the light bill. News drifted to us the way wind carries distant music. A teenager in Ohio arrested for faking crises on Live. A platform rolling out a harmful event detector that pauses streams and throws up a call button. A school board adding digital consent to health class. Small systems tugging themselves toward sanity. Not enough, not nothing. One afternoon, the counselor called. Tyler nominated you for Grandparents' Day speaker. I laughed so hard my chest hiccuped. What on earth would I say? He wrote. She taught me to name things so they stopped becoming everything. I pressed a dish towel to my eyes and said, I'll come. I brought the teacup and held it up in a gym that smelled like sneakers and popcorn. I said, This survived a fall by accident and design. So did we. I didn't say stream or viral or monetize. I said, Call your people before you post your people. The gym clapped the way small towns do when they understand you've put something back where it belongs. On a quiet night, Tyler and I watched the video he finally made for our archive. It was 3 minutes long. No music, only house sounds. A kettle sighing, a stair creak, a page turning. It showed my hands slicing apples, his hands washing the cutting board, my mouth not sampled but speaking. Title card in ink. This is not content. We shelved it between photo albums and a shoebox of letters from 1982. If the house burned, Tyler said, I'd grab this and the cat. In that order? I asked. Depends which is closer, he grinned. Before bed, I answered a message from a stranger. My niece live-streamed my panic attack. I feel erased. What helped you? I wrote back. Boundaries with sweaters. Scaffolding, not shame. Archive your life for yourselves. Teach the difference between evidence and exploitation. Ask, would future me thank present me for sharing this? Then I added. Call someone who says your name like a home. That night I dreamed of a stage with no audience, only chairs facing one another. People took turns sitting, saying ordinary sentences. I made oatmeal. I fixed the hinge. I took a walk and saw a blue door. Each line got applause like thunder. I woke up to light pooling on the floorboards and my heart taking its time. Faithful to a rhythm not optimized for anyone but me. In the morning, Tyler taped a new note to the fridge. More real, less spectacle. I added beneath it. More care, less capture. He drew a box around both and shaded it like a badge. The landline rang. Tina, second ring. I have news, she said. I convinced the senior center to host a class. Phones, boundaries, and the brave act of not posting. Will you co-teach? I looked at the calendar we'd made that wasn't an algorithm. Only a week with boxes. I will, I said. And afterward, we'll play cards with no pictures to prove it. Tyler laughed from the table. Put that on a t-shirt, he said. No, I smiled, pouring tea. Let's just live it. The letter arrived on a Tuesday, wearing official blue like a uniform. Civil subpoena, sat at the top like a stern uncle. A law firm's name I didn't recognize requested my appearance for a deposition in a defamation suit. Plaintiff, a content curator who had clipped my collapse and monetized it. Defendant, a platform watchdog who'd called him a ghoul with a ring light. I was a precipient witness to the events at issue. I made tea as if boiling water could change the words. Tyler read it twice, jaw tightening, then looked at me like he was checking for cracks. Do we have to go? He asked, and the we made me braver. We don't have to be anyone's spectacle, I said. But we do have to tell the truth in rooms that can hold it. I called Mara. You'll have support, she said. And boundaries. You can say, I don't know. I don't recall. That's outside my scope. The conference room smelled like carpet history and lemon wipes. A court reporter with hands like small birds set her machine on the table. The plaintiff's attorney smiled without warmth. Mrs. Carter, do you agree your incident occurred in a public space? My kitchen, I said. Private by design. Public by theft. His smile dimmed a half-watt. Did you consent to being recorded? No. Did you reach out to my client? No. Do you think words like ghoul are fair? I folded my hands. I think verbs matter more. He took. He sold. He refused to stop when told. The defendant's attorney nodded. A tiny bow to an altar we were constructing out of sentences. When it was over, the court reporter asked, unexpectedly gentle, Do you need a glass of water? Yes, I said, surprised to find thirst waiting like a loyal dog in the hall. Outside, sun made a theater of the parking lot. Tyler slid his hand into mine as if he were 6 again. You were good, he said, as if truth had been an instrument I'd practiced. That night I dreamed of doors. Some swung inward with a little sigh, some stuck and demanded shoulder, some opened onto nothing but sky. In the morning I wrote 2 columns on a pad. Doors we close, doors we open. Under close, crisis as content, apology as content, private grief in public rooms. Under open, archive for us, small screenings, teaching, letters answered with care. Tyler added, delete without drama, breathe before post, call before share. The senior center class filled faster than bingo. Tina stood at the whiteboard with a marker like a baton. Phones, boundaries, and the brave act of not posting. It read, and 3 ladies took photos of the title, then laughed and put their phones face down, as instructed. We passed around cards with 3 questions in big print. Did the person agree? Would future you thank present you? Who profits and who pays? A gentleman in a cap said, My nephew filmed my fall and posted it. I told him to take it down. He said, UNC, it's awareness. I said, awareness without consent is theft. He took it down. The room clapped the clap of humor and recognition, cousins at last. At home, the archive grew. Tyler labeled a drive, family not feed. We digitized tapes. His first wobbling bike ride, my late husband humming while fixing a radio with 2 paper clips, as promised by legend. We watched ourselves younger and made a rule. No pausing to critique body or paint color or hair choices. Witness with kindness. When we slipped, we rewound and tried again. News of the deposition sprouted think pieces like mushrooms after rain. Some were kind. Some treated me like a symbol instead of a woman who likes cardinals and perfectly folded dish towels. I answered the phone less and letters more. Paper slows the world to a speed where meaning can catch up. At rehab, Keisha introduced graduated exposure. You don't heal by hiding from the world forever, she said. You heal by meeting it on your terms. She had us list places we avoid because fear moved in and never paid rent. I wrote, grocery aisle where ring lights live. The park where teens narrate everything. The church steps on Sundays when phones hold like hymnals. For each, we wrote a tiny, doable step. Bring a friend. Set a timer. Name 5 blue things. I went to the market with Tyler. We counted blueberries, labels, a stranger's shirt, the sky in the freezer glass, a chipped ceramic bird near the cash register. No one raised a phone. The ordinary was triumphant in its refusal to perform. Pastor Lee invited us to a panel with teachers and teens. Title: Evidence versus Exploitation. I brought the teacup and the list of questions. A student asked, "What if posting helps someone?" I said, "Helping begins with asking the person in the frame what help looks like." Another asked, "How do you forgive yourself for when you didn't know better?" Tyler answered before I could. You build better, and then you use it. You apologize to the person, not the comments. A letter found me from the plaintiff's attorney, surprisingly human. He wrote, "I have a mother your age. I'm thinking about what I tell my associates regarding content. Thank you for your clarity." I stared at the sentence until it turned into a small bridge I hadn't expected. Not absolution, but a footpath. My daughter brought over a corkboard and pushpins. "Let's pin our week," she said. Analog. We made columns: work, care, rest, play, learn, give. It looked like a kindergarten lesson, and felt like adulthood finally turning friendly. In rest, I wrote, "Nap without guilt." In play, Tyler wrote, "Film rain for nobody." In learn, my daughter wrote, "Bake bread, not for photos." In give, we wrote, "Soup to Mrs. Morales. Time to the boy digitizing tapes. Patience to ourselves when we forget and reach for the bright noise." The deposition turned into a settlement rumor, and then into nothing I needed to attend. A small, boring victory. I celebrated by buying peonies that would drop their petals like confetti onto the table. A mess with no audience and no lesson except this: beauty is allowed to be private. On a late Sunday, the garage screening returned, this time with a theme: care. The films were quiet revolutions. A teen filmed her father ironing a shirt with reverence usually reserved for sunsets. Another showed a hand placing a glass of water on a nightstand, the camera lingering not on illness but on the tenderness of the gesture. Tyler's piece was 20 seconds of our landline ringing, then my hello. The audience laughed, then sighed, then clapped in that order. After, a boy asked me, "Is it okay that I don't want to be online?" I said, "It's more than okay. It's an art form." That night, I sat at the kitchen table with the teacup, alive by accident and design, and wrote a letter to myself from the day it happened. Dear me, it read, "The floor is cold but you are warmer than you think. The ring light is bright but not brighter than the lamps you'll build. The numbers will climb and fall and become irrelevant in the face of a hand on your shoulder and a call made in time. When you can teach. When you can't rest. When you doubt, count blue things until your breath remembers how to travel the long way home." Tyler taped it inside the pantry next to the anchor's list. "For emergencies," he said. "The kind that don't need cameras." We stood there with the door open, reading, two people practicing a ritual that used to be called family and now needed no rebranding. Before bed, the landline rang. Tina on the second ring as always. "I'm proud of you," she said. "For what?" I asked. "For choosing boring when boring is brave," she said. I looked at the corkboard, the archive shelf, the teacup. "Me too," I said. My heart kept its faithful, imperfect time, a drummer not auditioning for anyone, just playing the song it owed the room. Autumn arrived with that tidy light that makes even clutter look intentional. The maple on our street turned by sections, as if negotiating with itself about commitment. On a Sunday afternoon, Tyler brought home a permission slip from the media teacher. Student showcase, short films on the theme of repair. "I want to submit," he said, then hesitated. "But not our stuff. Not pain. What does repair look like without a before and after picture?" I asked. He tapped the table thinking. "Maybe like maintenance," he said. "What you do so things don't break." We made a list of quiet repairs: oiling the door hinge, resuing a button, calling a friend first, choosing not to post. He circled the last one. "That," he said. "A film about not filming." He shot for a week. Hands reaching for a phone, then choosing a book. A teen opening the camera app, then closing it and knocking on a neighbor's door. A basketball game played with nobody recording. A party where a bowl labeled phone slept under coats. He recorded the landline ring and my hello again, but this time he cut to feet walking toward each other, not screens sliding toward faces. On the title card he wrote in ink, "Repair is boring." Good. He screened it in the classroom. The silence after was the good kind, the kind that says people are chewing. Then someone clapped, then everyone, not wild but sustained. After a boy asked, "But how do you share it if the messages don't share?" Tyler shrugged. "We shared this room," he said. "Maybe rooms are enough." The principal emailed me the next morning. "Your grandson's piece sparked a conversation we should have had 2 years ago," she wrote. "We're piloting a phones and baskets policy for assemblies, with opt-in discussion circles after." I poured a celebratory cup of tea and thought of how many small policies it takes to tilt a culture. That week, my daughter had her own repair. She returned a brand partnership offer with a short note. "No emergency should be ad-supported." The brand replied, "We respect that." 2 days later, they announced a fund for creators who choose to demonetize crisis content. My daughter read the press release aloud with a face that looked like a knot loosening. "I know it's PR," she said, "but it's a better kind than before." At rehab graduation, Keisha handed me a paper heart punched from red construction paper. On it, "My heart is learning the long route." "You did the work," she said. "Keep your anchors handy." I slid the heart into my purse behind a photo of my husband at 25, eyes bright with the arrogance of survival. Later at home, I taped the heart inside the cupboard with the others. Anchor's letter to self. An altar built from printer paper and scotch tape. News came. The defamation case settled. No fireworks, no apology video, just a terse joint statement. The watchdog kept his platform. The curator went private. I celebrated by cleaning the pantry and labeling jars in my mother's slanted hand copied from her old cards. Sugar, flour, rice. Names are a way to tame the world. So are shelves. One evening, Pastor Lee invited Tyler to speak briefly before witnessing with honor. Tyler wore the too big sweatshirt that had become his bravery uniform. "I thought attention was love," he said to the room. "It's not. Love is what stays when attention leaves." He looked up and found me. "Love is the call that ends the stream." After, a girl with blue hair approached him. "My brother posted my seizure," she said. "I hated him. He took it down last week. He saw your video." Tyler's face arranged itself around a complicated feeling. Humbled, afraid to claim, grateful. "Want to make a film that's just dogs?" he blurted. She laughed. "God, yes." We drove to the shelter on Saturday with a list from the director. "Don't film people. Let dogs come to you. Keep lenses at their eye level. Ask permission for every frame." Tyler's film was a minute of noses, paws, size, tails, the particular optimism dogs carry like contraband. He titled it, "Reasons to Go Outside." I watched 3 times and cried, the tender kind that waters instead of floods. A letter arrived from the platform itself, a template with a human paragraph at the end. "We're piloting a pause and ask screen for flag live events. Is everyone safe? Do you have consent? There will be a bright call button." "It's late," I told the paper. "But not too late." Tina and I co-taught the senior center class again. This time we added a role play. One person is the stream. One is the call. The stream says, "Wait, we're peaking." The call says, "We'll peak later." We call now. Laughter at first, then a hush that meant they recognized their children in the lines and themselves too. After class, a woman hugged me and whispered, "My granddaughter deleted a viral clip last night." She said, "Grandma, I want to be interesting without being cruel." In the archive hour, Tyler pulled down a shoebox labeled Summer 2004. We found a photo of my daughter at 16, sunburned, wearing a paper crown from a picnic and holding a peach like a trophy. On the back she'd written, "Peach victory. No likes. Only juice." I texted her a picture of the picture. She replied, "That girl is still here." I typed, "Bring her to dinner." She came with an actual peach cobbler and a story about failing at bread and trying again. We ate failure and trying with whipped cream. At school, a counselor asked if I'd sit in on a circle for students whose images had gone places without them. We passed a talking piece, my teacup, now a sacred object by accident and design. Each student answered 2 questions. What was taken? What will you take back? The answers were variations on body, story, trust, and on voice choice, name. When the teacup reached me, I said, "I am taking back my whisper." It was not written to be remixed. They nodded as if a sound could be returned to its rightful owner. One afternoon, I found Tyler on the porch with the boy who had apologized at our door, plus 2 others. They had a sign, "Community digitizing, home movies only. Donation. A story you haven't told online." People came with VHS tapes and cookies. They left with USB sticks and lighter shoulders. A woman cried watching her father grill hot dogs in 1996. I forgot his laugh, she said. I forgot I could hear it without strangers. That night I wrote a short list titled When This Gets Hard Again. Because it will. 1. Call. 2. Breathe in 4 out 6. 3. Read the pantry door. 4. Count blue things. 5. Make tea. 6. Ask. Who needs me, not my audience? I taped it next to the others. The pantry door had become a lighthouse. On a walk, a neighbor stopped me. Saw Tyler's repair film, she said. My husband and I put our phones in a bowl at dinner for the first time in ever. We looked at each other. Turns out he has green eyes. We laughed the untrending kind. Later, the landline rang Tina's second ring. I found your old answering machine tapes, she said. You say leave a message like a queen granting an audience. Bring them, I said. We'll give that queen a smaller room. Before bed, I stood at the sink with the teacup that still refuses to break. The kitchen light made a clean little circle on the counter. The world outside kept whirring, uploading, refreshing, but inside the circle, repair looked like rinsing dishes, like rules wearing sweaters, like a boy screening a film to a room instead of a void. My heart kept its deliberate rhythm, unoptimized and loyal. Tyler turned off the porch light. The house exhaled. Tomorrow, he said from the hallway. Let's film clouds and then not post them. Deal, I said, and meant it the way a hinge means open and close. Folk engineering, devotion and motion, repair by use. Winter arrived like a clean page, quiet margins, pale light, room to rewrite. The maple out front stood leafless and honest, a diagram of choices held together by patience. On the first snow, Tyler taped a fresh card to the pantry door. When tempted to post, practice delay. Under it he wrote, in smaller letters, if it still matters in 24 hours, ask again. If it doesn't, let it go. We high-fived the idea like it had bones. The platform rolled out its new pause and asked, prompt on live streams flagged for danger. A box appeared. Is everyone safe? Do you have consent? Call now? People mocked it, then used it, then forgot to mock it because a built-in breath became habit. Keisha would have approved. Space for the good stuff. Our archive nights turned into a neighborhood ritual. Folks arrived with tins of cookies and boxes of tapes labeled in mystery shorthand. Smaz 95, Dad Fish, House Flood Smiles. We digitized and returned them with a printed card. Audience. Chosen. Purpose, remembering. A woman in a red scarf watched her younger self sing off-key at a birthday, and cried the kind that freed her jaw. I thought I'd lost this, she said. I thought I had to trade it for attention. We shook our heads like a chorus. Trade is not required. Tyler's media teacher asked him to mentor a freshman who'd been suspended for recording fights. I don't want to be the no guy, Tyler said, lacing his shoes. Tell him what you chose instead. I suggested. He returned 2 hours later with snow on his shoulders, and a look like he'd put down a heavy bag. We made a list called Adrenaline That Doesn't Hurt Anyone, he said. Sledding. Timed push UPS. Cold water on the wrists. Walking into a room and asking someone a real question. He shrugged. He kept the list. My daughter announced she was starting a new channel. Private, invite only, called The Boring Hour. People who opt in get 60 minutes of real time, she said. Me making soup. Me folding laundry. Me failing at bread again. No comments. No metrics. I raised an eyebrow. Isn't that just having a life? She laughed. Yes, but with a doorbell. She sent 5 invitations. 3 people came. It felt like chairs facing each other, she reported, cheeks pink with the relief of smallness. A letter arrived from the school district. Would I sit on a committee updating the digital citizenship curriculum? The envelope smelled faintly of toner and hopeful bureaucracy. I said yes, bringing my teacup and my pantry cards as if they were sacred texts. In a fluorescent room, we argued with kindness about verbs. Share, capture, witness, protect. We replaced don't do bad things with practice, consent, delay, and care. We added a unit titled The Right to be Ordinary. The vote passed with only 2 abstentions, one worried about test prep, one about tradition. We're honoring the oldest tradition, I said. Dignity. At church, Pastor Lee preached a sermon called Cameras and Crowds. The Ethics of Witness. He didn't say platform names, he said people's names, and asked us to practice them. After service, a teenager told me, I filmed baptisms last year so my account would grow. Today I asked each person if they wanted that. One said no. I deleted it. It felt like lifting a rock off a root. We stood there, letting the metaphor find soil. The deposition case faded into the general noise, replaced by a new scandal that would be replaced by another. Quietly, the watchdog reached out to thank me for language he'd started using. Verbs over labels, consent over clicks. We're all learning to name better, I wrote back. Names are steering wheels. One evening, Tina brought over a battered shoebox. Answering machine 98202. We huddled around a thrifted player like kids around a campfire. Voices spilled out. Cousins confirming casseroles. My husband reminding me to check the porch light. My mother laughing at a joke I can't hear but can feel. We copied them to a clean file labeled, "For Us." Tyler titled the folder, "The Kind Ring." We listened until midnight blinked on the stove, and no one cared we were bad at sleep anymore. Snow turned to a slush that made the street complain under boots. In Rehab's alumni group, Keisha asked us to bring a sentence that steadies us. Mine, call before you post your people. A man said, I am more than my audience, then amended, I am not my audience. A woman offered, I won't outsource my conscience to a crowd. We pinned the sentences to a board that looked like a quilt. Tyler got an email. His repair film would screen at a city youth festival. There will be press, the organizer warned, as if offering a weather report. Tyler looked at me, the pantry door, the ringed landline. Okay, he said. We'll bring our umbrellas. He wrote a press note with boundaries. No family emergencies referenced, no livestream questions, no footage requested from our archive. He practiced a single line as an answer to everything. The film says what it needs to say. At the festival, kids in thrifted blazers and scuffed boots filled folding chairs. A panelist asked, Do you fear irrelevance if you stop posting constantly? Tyler said, I fear being unkind. Irrelevance is rest. The room hummed like a fridge, ordinary and sustaining. Afterward, a reporter asked for a quote. He said, Repair is choosing a smaller room on purpose. We celebrated with pancakes for dinner and a rule. No photos. The syrup made maps on our plates. The house was a country with good borders. Spring licked at the edges of the snow, and the maple reconsidered color. The district's new curriculum rolled out with a parent night called Dignity Online. My daughter sat beside me, taking notes like she was studying for a life she wanted. After, a father raised his hand. What do I do if my kid says, everybody does it? The facilitator gestured to the room. Then show them this, everybody, she said. We're a crowd too, just not the loud kind. A message came from the freshman Tyler mentored. I left my phone at home for 1 hour. Didn't die. He replied, proud. Try to. The boy, my mom made hot chocolate. Tyler. That's a metric. On a rainy Saturday, the dog film girl came over with cookies and a shy smile that had found its setting. They edited a new piece called Weather Inside, shots of people looking out windows, rain finding its rhythms on different roofs. She asked permission from each subject, wrote their names in a notebook like a pledge. Tyler color corrected clouds, respectful as an archivist. They didn't hold hands. They didn't need to yet. In the mail, a small envelope from the platform's trust team. Paper, not pixels. Thank you for your testimony and ideas. Enclosed, a printed card with the pause and ask prompt and a wallet version of the call button numbers. I slid it behind my driver's license, thinking of all the things we carry that are more important than proof we can drive. I updated the pantry door with a new card. When in doubt, choose the person in the room. Tyler added under it. If the room is empty, call someone until it isn't. At night, I dreamed again of doors. This time some had windows cut in them at eye level, so you could see the person on the other side before you opened. I woke up grateful for peepholes and pauses and paper hearts taped to cupboards. One more letter arrived, hand-addressed, the ink a little wobbly. Dear Mrs. Carter, it began. I'm the boy who played your clip in class. I thought it was funny. Then my granddad fell last week, and I heard your whisper in my head, call. I did. He's okay. I'm sorry. I wrote back on a real card. Thank you for writing. Keep choosing the call. You're practicing a better kind of attention. We walked to the market, our boots making new conversations with the thawing street. Mrs. Patel's cat watched us from the window like a benevolent judge. Back home, the landline rang. Tina's second ring. Ready for lesson 2? She asked. Silence as a skill. I laughed. I've been studying, I said, pouring tea that steamed like a soft applause. Before bed, Tyler stood at the door with his camera. Clouds, he asked. Archife. I nodded. He filmed the night sky being itself and set the file in a folder named, "Not for anyone, for us." We turned off the lights. My heart kept its unshowy rhythm, loyal to a beat we built on purpose. The house exhaled, a small room with good doors, a pantry of paper wisdom, a phone that rings like a bell that means home. "Tomorrow," I said into the dark. "Let's practice boring." Tyler's laugh was the last sound. It felt like the future, tidy and possible, arriving without a need to be seen. Spring finished its careful work, and summer arrived with the soft tyranny of long light. Hours that insisted on being filled but did not say with what. The maple out front wore green like certainty. On the first really hot day, Tyler taped a new card to the pantry door. Summer rules are still rules. Under it, delay, consent, call, care. He drew a sun that looked like a fried egg. We laughed, which is a kind of compliance. The youth festival posted photos, not streams, not clips, still images of kids standing beside small screens, faces ordinary in that sacred way. Tyler's picture showed him pointing at his title card, "Repair is boring." Good. A commenter on the festival's page wrote, "I didn't know boring could feel like courage." The festival replied, "Now you do." Small systems answering small sentences, the scale that fits a life. An invitation arrived from the city library. Would we host a monthly archive night in their community room? Bring your tapes, your photos, your answering machine cassettes. The flyer would read, "Bring a story you haven't posted." I called Tina. "You bring the cookies, I'll bring the cords," she said. "And the teacup," I added, because it had acquired the gravity of a traveling relic. Tyler's schedule shifted with summer. Mornings at the animal shelter, afternoons trimming footage with the dog film girl, evenings digitizing for neighbors who paid in tomatoes and gratitude. He and the girl started holding hands exactly once, then twice, then like it had never not been the case. He introduced her as Maya, no handles, no tags. "She has a dog named Chair," he said. "Because she's Saturday." I admired the efficiency. My daughter's the boring hour settled into itself. 5 invitees, sometimes 4, sometimes 2, sometimes just me and her, soups and laundry, and the art of failing at bread giving way to the art of making slightly better bread. One night she said, "I didn't realize how much I miss small talk that isn't practice for a post." We shelled peas. The peas were metaphors and also peas. A letter found us from the platform's trust team again, this time asking if we'd join a pilot advisory council. Quarterly calls, audio only, bless them, feedback on prompts, language testing. "You'll be compensated," the email said, which is capitalism's way of apologizing for attention theft. We said yes, with a boundary document attached like a seatbelt. No use of family story in marketing, no press, no quoting us without consent. They agreed in writing, an old sound printed on new paper. At the first call, a young engineer said, "We're experimenting with a friction feature. If a stream is flagged for harm, comments default to off, and the call option becomes the biggest button." I pictured a hand reaching for a better habit. "Make the language human," I said. Not "we detected anomalous behavior." Try "we're worried with you." And don't say report. Say help. The room of squares nodded like birds. We were building a better sentence together, a civil engineering project in the mouth. The library's first archive night brought 23 people, and a fan that sounded like a distant plane. An elderly man wheeled in a box labeled "Family Heavy." We took turns lifting his past onto the table. A child watched her mother cry at a clip of her own childhood. Sprinklers, popsicles, the bright kingdom of a backyard before the internet asked everything to explain itself. We returned the files and the box with a sticker that said audience. Chosen, purpose, remembering, monetization, no. People took photos of the sticker. Then, remembering, didn't post them. Cardiac rehab alumni met for a picnic. Keisha in a sun hat. Paper hearts taped to paper plates. "Anchors travel," she said, tapping her chest. "You can take them to a fireworks show or a family reunion. You can hold them during a hard phone call." We went around and shared a new sentence that steadied us. Mine practiced the right to be ordinary. A man offered, "I don't have to be interesting to be loved." A woman, "My emergency is not a teaching tool." We pinned the sentences with toothpicks. Wind threatened them. We resettled them with lazy dignity. A minor storm brewed online about the festival's phones and baskets policy. A columnist called it Luddite theater. The kids wrote a collective reply, "We're not anti-tech. We're pro-room." The principal laminated it and hung it in the hallway. I copied it on an index card and taped it next to our summer rules. The pantry door was now a municipal building. Maya and Tyler made a short called Weather Inside, then another called Small Repairs. Tyler oiling hinges, Maya darning a sleeve, me writing checks in my careful hand, the shelter dogs sleeping in afternoon sun. They screened it at the library. No phones came out. People breathed like they'd forgotten that's an option. Then the phone rang my cell, which rarely does. A number I didn't know. A young voice, cautious. Mrs. Carter? I'm from the platform. Trust and safety. We wanted to let you know. Your livestream clip, original, has been removed where we can remove it. Not everywhere, but manywheres. I sat down. Manywheres is a word now, I said, and we both laughed like conspirators. Thank you, I added and meant, for trying, for papering a window that will never fully close and doing it anyway. Late July brought heat that made walls generous and time lazier. I napped without punishing myself. The landline rang, Tina's second ring. Do we dare teach lesson 3? She asked. Saying no out loud. We did, and half the senior center cheered, the other half asked for scripts. We handed out little cards. No, thank you. That's private. I'm not available for that. Please don't record me. Please delete that. I will step away now. People read them like spells. Power is polite when it can be. In the mail, a card from the boy who had once played my clip in class. Started a film club at lunch. No phones, only stories. Today we just sat quietly together for 5 minutes. It was hard. It was good. I wrote back. Hard and good is Practice's favorite outfit. On an evening with a pink sky so obvious you had to forgive it, Tyler and I set up lawn chairs and filmed clouds for the archive. Maya joined, chair the dog asleep like a comma. I think I want to study social work, Tyler said suddenly, as if the sentence had been waiting in his mouth, warmed by body heat. Digital harm. Real harm. How to triage attention. I turned surprised and not. You'd be good, I said. You've trained with a tough coach. He laughed. Grandma rehab, he said and saluted. At church, Pastor Lee announced a new practice. If seeing phones at the altar triggers fear, ushers will offer anchor cards, breathing prompts, the hotline number, a pencil prayer. Keep me present. People wept in quiet, relieved ways. Rituals wearing sweaters indeed. The advisory council sent a draft of a new prompt. Are you recording someone in distress? Please stop and call. Lives are worth more than views. We suggested flipping it from scold to invitation. You can help right now. Please call. We'll be here when you get back. They changed it. I imagined all the hands that might choose a different button because a sentence leaned toward them kindly. One afternoon, the doorbell announced a delivery. A small plaque from the library. Community archive, it read, beneath our names in modest font. It's for the room, the librarian said. Not you. Perfect, I replied. We screwed it into drywall and high-fived like we'd hung a moon. Near summer's end, the school counselor called. We're seeing fewer fight videos, she said. When they do appear, students comment, call and delete more than post more. It's not a revolution. It's a shift. Shifts move continents given time and pressure. I put the phone down and whispered, thank you. To nobody in particular and to everyone. On the last night of August, we hosted Archive Night under string lights. Someone brought a cassette of Ocean Waves recorded in '87. We played it through library speakers. The room breathed in unison. A child asked, can we keep this sound? Yes, the librarian said, if we keep each other. After, we walked home through a warm dark that asked nothing of us. Tomorrow, Tyler said. No filming clouds. A radical plan, I agreed. At the door he paused. Grandma. Yes. Do you ever miss the rush? He meant the dangerous electricity. I considered. I miss the feeling of being needed, I said. But attention wasn't need. This. I gestured at our humble street, our lit window, the teacup on the sill like a sentinel. This is need meeting answer. Inside, I taped a final summer card to the pantry. More room, less crowd. Tyler added beneath. More calls, fewer clips. Maya printed a tiny cloud and glued it in the corner. Chair sneeze, which we accepted as her signature. We turned off the lights and let the house hum its ordinary hymn. My heart kept its deliberate, unspectacular beat, a drummer content with the small stage of a life. Tomorrow would arrive without trumpets, which is to say, perfectly. We would practice boring the brave kind and archive what stayed, which is to say, each other.